Good morning, everyone. If everyone can just grab a pen and paper or something to note down an idea, thank you. We'll put them to use in a second. So I reckon there's enough of us, or not too many of us. We can probably just leave our mics open, but obviously mute your mic if you have a noisy house. So we are going to start with a very, very fast check-in. So just your name and something that you've noticed about decisions. And the order that I call you out in will be the order that we carry on in through the rest of the session. So I'll start. My name is Tim, and what I've noticed about decisions is that when we don't intentionally make them, we end up sleepwalking into them. I will pass to Mayen. You're next on my screen.
Hi everyone, I'm Mayen. Sorry, camera off. I just got off my bike trainer and I'm sweaty and disgusting, so I'm gonna spare everyone that picture. But sorry to put it in your head. In terms of like decision making, just understanding like what factors help towards a better decision. So I don't think there's like one right answer, and obviously it changes depending on the context. But yeah, love to hear more.
Cool. Ian.
I'm Ian. I've just jumped in here, context switching something else, so I've got no thoughts about decisions at the moment.
That's totally fine. Tom.
Hiya, Tom Dixon, down in Devon. Decision making. Too many people makes it harder to get to a decision.
Yes. Louise, what have you noticed about decisions?
I think they're often taken by a few people when more input would be better. But equally, you don't want to duplicate loads of work for everybody.
Thank you. Andy.
Hi, Andy. Down in Devon as well as Tom. So yeah, decisions. I'd probably say we need to make sure we give people the right data to allow them to make better decisions faster.
Thank you. Swain?
In Orkney in the north of Scotland, and the thing that strikes me about decisions is that we're nearly all very good at delaying making them at all.
Thank you. Jacqueline?
Hi, I'm Jackie from Oldham, and I think that these days, at least, often decisions seem to be trend-led rather than critically thought out. If everyone else is doing it, it must be right.
Thank you. Daryl?
Hi, Daryl Season, Haringey in London. My observations are often slow or hesitant in making decisions.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Hi, I'm Jonathan in Surrey. Sorry, I joined a bit late. I think someone earlier said about the kind of hierarchical approach, which, yeah, too many decisions are made at too high a level in organisations, not sort of at all levels.
Thank you. Rob? Oh, you're totally on mute, Rob. Okay, I'll go for Neil.
Hi, Tim. Sorry, I was late and I missed the question.
Oh, no problem. What have you observed about decision making?
In the council, in where I work?
Well, or in your relationship.
Okay, well, two very different experiences, and maybe worth drawing them out. In my relationship, I seem to have a lot of say, but not really. So there's sort of the illusion of having engagement in the process, but not really. But decisions are made quickly. In the council, my experience over whatever it is, 20 odd years, is that some decision making can be very long-winded and take a long time.
Thank you.
And
yes.
not based on good reasons.
Yes, I definitely think that as humans, we often think that decisions have to be either fast or inclusive, and they can't be both. So I'm hoping to demonstrate today a way of making them both. Rob, if you have your microphone, you're welcome to
hear me
jump.
now? Sorry about that, guys. It's a bit like Neil, really. I think things take a long time to get a decision sometimes. and there's an inordinate amount of kind of paperwork usually involved as well, which kind of frustrates me. In a personal life, I think I'm like Neil. I feel like I've got a lot to say, but actually I think that what happens when you step back, you go, I didn't really make that decision, I was told what to do.
All right, thank you everyone. So the order I called you out in, that's how I see you on the screen. Nick, I haven't called you out because I'm assuming you're observing. Do you want to participate or just observe? I'll assume Nick's just observing the session. He hosted it. So a show of hands if you're a fan of liberating structures. Great. Okay, so if you don't know about liberating structures, essentially they are a sort of a structured way to allow inclusion and engagement and better ways of doing things. What we're doing today is not by definition a liberating structure, but it is essentially an uber liberating structure for decisions. So it feels highly structured, but it's actually very liberating. I hope that is what your experience of this will be. It will feel very clunky today because this will be the first time we're doing this for a lot of people. It's not going to feel fun and it's not going to feel natural. This is not like a group of friends getting together in a pub and deciding where they're going to go on holiday. That's fun. This is not going to be like that, but I hope we will all learn a lot. So participation in this is going to be useful for you to learn, but it's not mandatory. And I actually think it would be easier if there was no more than 8 of us actually participating in this session. So if you would like to just observe, do switch your camera off now and I will consider you as an observer rather than a participator. That's fine, thank you. Okay, and so to be clear, I'm only going to be getting the people who have cameras on to participate. And if it helps, Zoom actually does allow you to hide non-video participants, which I've just done right now, which is a bit exclusive, but here we go. Awesome, inclusive decision making with a bunch of middle-aged white dudes. Perfect. Anyway, this is how it is for today. So if you could all take 1 minute, and I'll set a little timer, to write down a simple proposal that you might make to this group. Now, the proposal has to be something that we could do immediately. It has to have immediate consequences. For example, you could propose to the group that we will get up and do a little dance. That's pretty stupid. You could propose to the group that we will all make a singular commitment to do X. Or you could propose to the group that we will do a minute silence. Like any one of those things, we can do immediately at the point of it being decided. So if you can take 1 minute to think of something that you would propose to the group that might fill that criteria and be better than my examples. All right, 30 seconds left. Okay, so who has written down a proposal that they would like to put to the group now that they feel pretty sure we can attempt to agree on?
Yeah, I've got one.
All right, Tom, do you want to just don't worry about making it too formulated, but just tell us now what you're thinking.
I'm proposing that at the end of this session, we should reconvene in a social setting online and make ourselves a cup of coffee and have a chat. Right.
Okay. So I'm now going to give you 1 minute to actually write that down, so it's super clear. And then I'm going to ask that you put that back to the group as a pretty much what you said. But if you can write that down so it's line for line perfect. I'll give you a minute to do that. And for the rest of you, I'm not. Well, I'm hoping that you're able to kind of trust me through this process. Essentially, what's going to happen is I'm going to try and support Tom in getting his proposal understood and sort of fully formed. And at the end of the process, you will have a chance to object to it if you think it's sort of a totally unacceptable proposal. So I'm going to step you through a series of rounds, and we will have a chance at the end to object. But the very first step in this process, Tom, please read us out your proposal.
I propose that we choose a time to reconvene on a social Zoom call with a cup of coffee in hand.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to invite clarification questions about Tom's proposal. So it's not a chance to react. It's not a chance to say I don't like it or I can't because I'm doing this. I just want clarification questions so that you are totally clear on what Tom's proposal means. I'm going to go around in the order that we started in, so don't worry about putting up your hands. We'll do rounds so everyone will get a chance to go through this, but do feel free to put up your hand if you've got a real burning question about the process that can't wait until the end. So first up on my list is Andy.
Okay. I'm just going to ask a clarification there. In terms of it, is the drink essential to the outcome? So is it, if I don't want coffee, would that be a problem?
You make a very good point, Andy, and that was for illustration only, and I would suggest that people can bring a refreshment of their choice or none at all, in fact.
Thank you. Perfect clarification question. Perfect answer, Tom. Yes, answer if you can. You're very welcome to say, I don't know. And you might want to just make a little note of the fact that what you're doing is essentially amending this proposal as we go. Okay, so next on the list is Swain.
Do we have to make it a Zoom call? Could we use some other communications channel platform type?
I can answer that. Thank you. It's a good point you make. I'm aware that many people use different platforms and have different preferences. My first preference personally would be to meet in the pub, but because that is unavailable, what we could do is a quick straw poll of the people's preferences for different platforms, and based on a majority vote, we could perhaps proceed on that basis.
Thank you. Ian, sorry, I missed you off there earlier. Anyway, go for it with a question.
Did you have an amount of time in mind for how long you were planning to meet for?
I have no fixed time in my mind. I would be happy to take the views of those participating in the meeting.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Yeah, Tom, were you thinking it would be, you mentioned a social gathering. Are you thinking it would be purely social, or would there be any kind of work or professional related chat as well?
Personally, I would think it would be quite nice to have a social event in a similar style to local gov camp and the things that happen in the evening. Inevitably, some conversation tends to focus around bits of work, but actually it's quite nice to lay down some ground rules around actually having a social conversation, I think, sometimes.
Thanks.
Fantastic. So we'll do another round of clarification questions. If you don't have a clarification question, just say pass. And remember, you'll get a chance to react in the next round. So we're still seeking clarification questions. Andy. Oh, wait, did I skip Rob and Neil?
Yes.
Sorry, Rob, go for it.
Not taking it personally, don't worry.
Thank you.
Tom, can we go ahead if not everyone can make it?
I would be of the view that if there was sufficient numbers of us, we should proceed, if people are comfortable with that.
Thank you. Neil.
Tom, sorry, this may sound pedantic, but are you proposing that we fix a time to meet or we meet? Because they're two slightly different things. I know one follows the other.
My proposal was that we choose a time to reconvene, and that was my wording, being pedantic.
So I could choose a time but not turn up?
I would suggest that we collaborate, check our diaries, find the most appropriate time, and then of course you've got perfect freedom to not join because it's a non-binding social event.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Andy,
Thank you.
do you have any further clarification questions?
No, I'm still getting over a non-binding social agreement.
You'll have a chance to comment on that in a second. Swain.
No, I pass.
Ian.
I pass too.
Jonathan.
Just do you have a view on how soon we should that date should be arranged?
I think we're in the middle of local gov camp and it would be timely to have it this week, but if that's not possible, I'd be happy for it to happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Thanks.
Rob.
Are you thinking the evenings or weekend?
We said that we would put the choice of time out to the participants. So I'm easy on that one.
Neil.
No, nothing further at this stage. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any burning clarification questions for Tom before we move to the next round? Okay, great. So I'm going to keep going in the same order. So the next round is reactions. So this is your chance to do what I know you've been itching to do, which is to basically tell Tom how you're feeling about this proposal. So we are now all clear what Tom is proposing. Now it's your chance to actually react with feelings or with suggestions or anything else you'd like to react with. So Andy.
I think it sounds like a really good idea. Obviously the times are quite difficult and I think, yeah, sounds like a good idea. Allow people to blow off some steam. Maybe do make it in the evening and people could have a beverage that wasn't a hot beverage maybe as well sometimes if they wanted to. Yeah, generally I think good idea, mate.
Swain.
I also think it's a good idea. I think that it's easy to miss out the social side of things in events organized online like this. And the more that we can encourage people who are collaborating to meet a bit socially for part of the time, the better, and the more effective the outcome of the whole event will be. I would also say that no, can't remember what I was going to say otherwise, so it's not much of a reaction, so I'll stop.
Thank you. Ian.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Echo what's already been said. I suppose one observation was that you've pushed a lot of the decisions on what, where, who, when, and how out to the group, so it might just take longer than it could do to reach a decision on all those different things, and it might be difficult to find a consensus.
Jonathan.
Yeah, my initial reaction was that I wasn't sure if it was the great example to use, but actually the more I think about it, it is actually, and it's a good idea. And I agree with Andy actually that when I think about coffee, I think about work time beverage, but when I think about doing something sociable, I tend to prefer to have a different sort of drink in my hand, and I think that would be good.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, I agree. It's a good idea. I think it would be helpful for us to agree a time today rather than go our way and try and work that out. I think it would be better for an evening as well. But yeah, because uncertainty, I think, could mean that it will be forever in the planning, like a lot of the stuff I do at work.
Thank you. Neil?
I do like the idea. I think my only observation of it is that we've jumped into the how we're going to do this and on the minutiae of what we're going to do it, what platform we're going to do it, and this type of stuff before gaining overall commitment to it as to whether people want to do it. So it's sort of an assumed commitment to it, but I do have that commitment.
That's right, and so the actual commitment comes at the very end. So Tom, now you've heard people's clarification questions and you've heard their reactions. I'm going to give you 2 long minutes to rewrite your proposal that you can pitch back to the group. And so if you can make your proposal as clear and concrete as possible, we will then move to the final 2 rounds. So just let me know when you're done. I'll give you 2 minutes in silence, and silence from everyone else would be great. Thanks.
Okay. Would you like me to do that?
So while we wait for Swain and Andy to come back, if you've got any questions or thoughts about the process, just do feel free to write them down as we go, and we can hopefully address them at the end. I will give Swain the last 20 seconds, just because I did say 2 minutes.
Andy, I'm liking your corporate branded background.
Apparently on the Zoom one, they said it doesn't sell well, so I'll have to change it.
Oh.
Corporate is bad.
Okay, I'm thinking that we maybe carry on without Swain. So Tom, you've rewritten your proposal. If you could repropose that to the group now.
I propose that we pilot a social call on Zoom tomorrow. That's
sorry, Tom. Sorry, I will interrupt just because Swain's just come back. So maybe from the top.
Okay. I propose that we pilot a social call on Zoom tomorrow. That's Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. for 1 hour. Choice of beverage for those who can or would like to attend.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to go in the same order that we've been going in. So I'm after objections here. Now, a valid objection isn't I don't like it, but a valid objection might be this is a bad idea for this group of people. This is a dangerous or a backward step, or it's risky. So personal objections don't hold, but if you've got a valid objection that this is a bad step for us as a group, now's the time to air it. So Andy, any objections from you?
I suppose my only one would be not surprising from me, but a bit about technology platform and whether that's the right one for a social. But yeah, generally with it, happy to go with consensus.
Swain.
I have no specific objections to that proposal in terms of danger, unwiseness, or other negative factors like that.
Thank you. Ian.
For the sake of the process, I'll say that it's possibly too short notice for the group to be able to convene by tomorrow.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Yeah, my immediate reaction was one that I can't attend, so I've got to take my daughter to ballet, and therefore, so it goes. It's gone away a little bit from the original proposal, which was to end by agreeing a date. We're now we've got the date, and that seems, as Ian said, A, a bit short notice, and B, a bit more than I was expecting at this stage in the session.
Thank you. Rob.
Don't have any objections at all.
Neil.
No, nothing further from me, no.
Okay, so could someone who objected to the proposal attempt to re-propose this in a way that will make it safe for the group to accept? You're welcome to take a few seconds to do that.
So that's going to be Andy or Jonathan, I think.
Well, I think the key critical objection there from people was to the timing and agreeing a time. So I think potentially a bit more flexibility around that would make it clearer and easier for the group to take forward.
So you're welcome to put that to the group as a proposal, Andy. If you can now say, I propose that we...
I propose that we get a committee together and form a committee. No, let's keep it agile. Yeah, I propose that we have some sort of quick poll or vote and see what the best available time for us is, and come up with the solution that hopefully meets most of our needs, or as many as is humanly possible.
Thank you. So I'm now going to do a round of objections to this proposal. Tom, you now get a chance to object to this proposal.
No objections. That's a perfectly sound approach.
Swain? Ian? Jonathan? Rob? Neil?
No.
Okay, so someone who knows how to take well, hold on a second, we're not quite there yet, but we almost are. Someone who knows how to take a screenshot of Zoom, that would be great, because right now I'm going to ask all of you who are not Andy to signal your approval to the proposal by giving a visual thumbs up. Andy, you're welcome to give a thumbs up as well, but I'm really asking everyone else to do this. Great, thank you. So this ends the process. We've just reached a decision. Granted, it might not be a decision that everyone loves. And I think the point of this process is we get to a decision where often in life we stay in this space of sort of muddle. Andy, as the proposer, this is now on you to make sure that an invite goes out to everyone to find a time to meet. And I will now invite the observers, if they would like, to turn their cameras back on. And I'm just going to open the floor now. We have an hour, but feel free to leave this meeting whenever you'd like. To ask questions about that, I'd especially welcome Tom. How did it feel for you to make a proposal in that way and be critiqued and heard in that way?
It was good, actually. I mean, it's a bit like being in a sort of agile stand-up. Really, you're in a safe, well, hopefully you're in a safe space. I know sometimes in local authorities you're not. You know, you've got different factions with different agendas, which can make it interesting. But it was nice to have a clear process to go through to make. My difficulty to begin with was not assuming and making too many decisions, because I like to be open and inclusive. That then came out in the clarifications saying, well, actually, it ain't ever going to happen. So then I reproposed and made it perhaps too definitive in terms of stating a time, but that came out in the conversation, didn't it, in the clarifications, and we came to a happy place at the end of it. So it was good. I think it was a good, I mean, I know I chose the example, but whatever example, it was a really good exercise to step through. So yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to hear more observations. I'm especially looking forward to hearing some sort of criticisms or what didn't work so well.
Can I just ask Tim, if we'd all said no, we hate Andy's idea, what would have been your next step at that stage, just to understand what would happen there?
So the idea is that you sort of keep going until you get a full thumbs up. I think if everyone was giving a thumbs down, I think that would mean, look, this is a proposal that cannot be tweaked. You know, this is bonkers. So yeah, possibly I would invite the group to just totally rethink, do we actually want to meet? Is there something else we could be doing with that?
So what if you had 2 thumbs down there, for example? Then would you put it back to Andy to rephrase it, or would you open it up to one of the thumbs downers to rephrase it? Or,
open it up to one of the thumbs downers, or challenge them gently. Like, I'm not asking you to love this proposal, and is your thumbs down an actual I can't live with this, or I don't like this? And that's what, as humans, a lot of the decisions we get involved in, they're decisions we don't like, but tough, really. Like, a lot of the time it's better that a decision gets made that we don't like than we block things on those grounds. And so this is called consent-based decision making, as opposed to consensus. I like to say that consensus is the worst C word you can use. And if we operate under the sort of the way of thinking of consent, it allows us to make decisions that are good enough for now, safe enough for try, and it just allows life to move forward. Whereas consensus often holds us in this space of things not happening. And I do think that not making a decision is a decision, and it's often the worst decision.
Tim, just based on what you've just said, that's very, very interesting. I mean, sort of my reflection on this is that this process would be good for certain types of decision. I suppose one niggling thing in my mind is, even though we get consent, and I was going to use the consensus word, but you're right, but even though we get consent, does it mean we've made the right decision? Now, in this case that we've dealt with, I think we have, but is there not a danger we still make a bad decision?
Yes, I've got a great answer to that, but I suspect someone else would as well.
You pointed out earlier at the start, Tim, that we weren't a very diverse group. It could be that where there's a lack of diversity in a decision-making group, the wrong decision is made, or a decision that actually maybe doesn't take into account, broader thinking. That might be a potential problem.
Yes, agreed. And the point of sort of taking the photograph or the screenshot of the thumbs up is, if someone in the future says, hey, like, why did all you white dudes meet up? And, we can go, oh, well, yeah, there was this point in time when a bunch of white dudes were the only people in the room and we made that decision. So you're able to trace a decision back to its roots, like why it got made and when. And yes, by only being white dudes, like, we're probably not the right group to make that decision. That said, we made a decision that only impacted us. So if we had made a decision that impacted Louise or Nick or other people that weren't there, again, they would be able to trace that back and kind of hold us to account. Why did you make a decision that involved us but didn't include us? And it's that being intentional about the decision making is what's really important. And yes, you could end up making not the best decision, but I would propose that the biggest problem in local gov is not that we don't make the best decision, but we often just make no decision.
I've got another observation, Tim. It was great that the decision then also we ended with an action. The observation is that the action is now the ownership of that is with Andy, not the person who came up with the original idea or proposal. So in some ways, Andy may feel that he's now got a monkey on his back that he didn't have when he started this process. It's maybe not so bad for arranging a social gathering, but there could be certain decisions which people might not want to, do counter proposals because they think I'll be the one who ends up taking away the work.
I think that's a pretty good barrier to entry. So if you're not prepared to do the work to make something better, then suck it, basically. Like I think that's a reasonable bar to entry. And I think a lot of us love to object to stuff because it's easy. And fine, it's easy to say no. It's easy to block stuff, but it's a lot harder to take something and move it, take something and make it better. So yeah, I see your point, Tom.
But related to that, in a local gov world, the proposal could nominate the person who might take on that responsibility, and they could choose to object. I'm thinking, the area of expertise is the roads department, and I'm sitting in digital comms. Actually, I might be making a suggestion to make things better, in my view, but I ain't going to do it. It's up to roads to sort of come back and say, well, actually, I agree or I disagree. So perhaps there's something around that.
Yeah, and so often what you get with this process is you jump one step back, like what we just did. So in that case, a better proposal might be not that roads department do this, but we recommend that roads department do this. Now that's a better proposal. That's something we can all sign up to. We can make the recommendation to the roads department, and it's up to them what to do with it. So often taking a step back is where you end up.
Is it always or often a useful part of the proposal to include kind of roles and responsibilities? Sounds a bit overblown, but the proposal could have been that we decide which of us is going to coordinate whatever it was that Tom said or whatever it was they agreed in the end. You see what I mean?
I think the more concrete a proposal is, the better. But yes, sometimes, yeah, I think the more concrete it is, the better. And like, I know when some groups do this, they actually have a one-pager that they encourage people to read before. The proposer simply summarizes that one-pager to the group, and then they work on that basis. So yeah, if possible, concrete is best.
Tim, do you always need someone like you who does the kind of mediation, the chair, the kind of you next in this process, or could teams like do this collectively?
I think teams could do it collectively. Yeah, I'm sure they could. What can be? Yeah, I think as long as people held each other to account, that would work fine. And it's nice to be in the role of facilitator and not confusing that with being the proposer as well. So but yes, once you've got good at it, I reckon absolutely you could use this. And for me, I see the power in this process is breaking up the things that we conflate as humans. So we conflate our questions with our reactions, with our objections, and we lump all these things onto someone like Tom, who's just getting a barrage of stuff. So yes, when we can break things down into discrete steps, it's great. I would love to see a team doing this. Yeah, a team in local gov doing this regularly. I was actually going to link to a blog that I can drop into the chat, but one company, Percolab, in one governance meeting, they made, I think, like 30 strategic decisions in an hour using this process, just because they're only a sort of a core group of a few people. It does allow you to absolutely motor through this process once you get good at it.
I wonder if our cabinet could use it at one point.
Well, it's funny. I mean, Richard Grice, our director, when we did this with him, he did sort of make that joke as well, and I think it's possible. Yeah. Cool. So I'm not going to hold us all until 12 o'clock because I think 45 minutes is quite a nice time for an end. But I'm happy to stick around here until 12 if anyone's got any more questions. And happy to keep the chat open and happy for people to go away. I will actually drop into the chat a couple of 2 interesting links that I guess sort of for further reading. Oh yes, well done, Andy. Do download the Liberating Structures app on your phone. Oopsies, I've just done that wrong.
I'm not seeing your links.
Oh yeah?
There they are.
Okay, great. Yeah, so one's a blog which explains this process a lot better than I've done, and another one's a podcast which not only explains this process but it explains the history behind it. It actually comes from like sociocratic and holocratic practices, but even before that it was being used by a religious group that I can't quite remember in their decision making. But anyway, Tom.
May I ask how this has worked out in your organisation? Has this been adopted across the organisation, or is it something you've tried out in your part of the organisation? Or
yeah, so it's something that I first tried it out like with a director for fun in a sort of a pub setting, but I have done it with the team a couple of times, and I've done it with external groups in the council, like not within my team, but other groups in the council a couple of times. Every time we've reached a decision, and for me, that's a measure of success. I guess what's not successful is it's never particularly fun or smooth or natural, I suppose, and I'm not sure if that's the reason, but it hasn't been adopted at Haringey for sure.
No, it's definitely something I want to try in my team when in the right scenario. I think it'd be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and look, do feel free to sort of practice it with me or others beforehand. The first time I did it was just such a disaster because I hadn't fully comprehended it. But I'm happy to help anyone practice this. But yeah, read the blog, listen to the podcast. They will help you sort of mentally prepare for it as well.
That's great.
Interesting. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Cheers.
Thanks very much, Tim. Wonderful session. And yeah, we'll forward on the links, and I'll forward on the recording to you, Tim, and all of the participants. Thanks very much for taking the time out and contributing today. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Well done. Cheers, Tim. Well done. Thanks very much. See you all later.
Bye.